Hi, and welcome to Roundtable Pay, a forum for discussion and reflections in the field of payroll and compensation solutions. The purpose is to gather experts within a specific area to share experience, discuss challenges and opportunities ahead of us. We choose to focus on a subject that are interesting and important for customers as well as vendors in the market. And for today's theme, we have chosen payroll across multiple countries, often known as global payroll. My name is Olof Ask. I work as a senior payroll consultant and market analyst for the consultancy firm HerbertNathan & Company. We advise and guide companies and organizations with feasibility studies, analysis, procurement, and implementations of various types of HR software and payroll solutions, and I look forward to lead the session. Today, we have gathered an experienced panel with participants from some of the market's most leading and interesting payroll solution providers. Today, with us, we have ADP, SD-Works, DEEL, and Alight. And soon you will get the chance to introduce yourselves. I just want to inform the audience that you have been selected since you represent companies with solid experience in the field of global payroll. So welcome to a sunny and beautiful Stockholm, and please feel free to give a brief introduction of yourself and the company you represent. I will hand it over to you, Els, to start the presentation.
Thank you very much, Olof. I'm Els Hansens, based in Belgium, Brussels to be concrete, working for SD-Works as international sales manager. My team is a little bit spread over whole of Europe, and together we advise customers making the right choices going forward in payroll and HR.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, Olof. Ian Dunne. I'm working with Alight. I'm the Client Service Director for Northern Europe, which is the Nordics down into Netherlands and Belgium. So we're working in payroll outsourcing in over 180 countries, and I'm based here, as I said, in the south of Sweden.
Hi Olof, my name is Emile. I work for ADP, the world's biggest payroll provider. Today my role is Vice President of Sales for EMEA, and I'm looking for new growth opportunities for ADP. So happy to be here.
Hi Olof, my name is Dennis. I'm with DEEL, and I think we are the youngest one of the bunch as a company, and I'm the Global Accounts Manager for DEEL in the Benelux region.
Thank you, and welcome. Okay, so let's start with the first subject, workforce management excellence. It is essential to increase efficiency and improve performance of the organization, and especially the importance of diversity and the lack of talent in the market has gained a lot of attention recently. So, first difficult question, is there some way a payroll solution across several countries can contribute to diversity within an organization with all the positive aspects that it brings? Ian.
Absolutely, very important in terms of attracting the right talent. It's still difficult. Getting the right competence in the market is difficult. With a global payroll or reward strategy, if you want to take the full meaning of that with benefits and payroll together, you can actually design very competitive packages which align with each of the markets. So you can still get a global standard, but it's really important, Olof, I think, to make sure that you're aware of different marketing needs.
Thank you. Emile?
Yeah, with regards to diversity, I think by having a global payroll system, you can also tap into markets that you've not been in before. For example, if you have that system, it's one system to work for all, meaning that the location doesn't matter anymore, and some of the talents that you're looking for might be in another location than that you are based in, for example, with your headquarters.
Yeah. Dennis?
No, yeah, I think the same thing, and I think if you take it one step back, after COVID, the world changed, obviously, and companies are now forced to look at their companies a bit differently, and I would rather talk more about global employment rather than global mobility, global payroll. Because ultimately, like Emile said, and to build upon that, is that you want to find the right talent, because finding talent is not impossible, it's just harder. But if you look into countries where there's heaps of talent, and I see this with DEEL as well, where we are hiring tech talent and engineers from Southern America, it's quite interesting to see. And bringing all those people, they bring their own culture, their own ideas, and you get more diverse workforces and better and faster solutions. That's what we see at DEEL.
Yeah. And you talked about it. I mean, compliance complexity, labor laws, country legislation could be a problem to find the talent. I mean, else, do you see a global payroll solution to provide better opportunities in terms of those?
Absolutely. I think the beauty of it is that it brings together the hard side of payroll and the soft side. So, because in Europe, every country has its own regulations, so you still have to you still have to follow that. On the other hand, you have that challenge as an international company to be creative, to find synergies, to find ways that apply, or policies that apply for everyone, so that everybody is engaged, that you attract more people, different people. So I think that's the great thing about that one solution, and then still with respect with regards to the local legislation under it.
Yeah. Ian, further reflections on compliance and
I think you touched on the whole idea of culture, different cultures, and whilst we try to set up one organizational culture, national cultures, even across Europe, as Els has said, are very, very different. So you've got the legislative layer, but you've got market practices, you've got differences, again, in terms of South America, Latin America, across the different markets. They're very, very different practices. So it's important to be able to, understand and have local partners as well as a global standard. So you can get a good balance between, standard streamlined payroll, but also something which is attentive to the local kind of needs and market expectations.
Okay. But in the end, should you worry about, all those new regulations and rules, or should you just be outsourcing those and spend your time on making sure that, like you said, you use those rules to your advantage of your company, right?
Sure.
So should we really know those rules? I don't think so, right? There's about 20,000 new rules every year, right? This is not over-exaggerating. That literally is 20,000 rules every year across the globe. We can't expect someone to know those all, right? And I think, yes, I'm preaching for the choir here, but it's outsourcing of your payroll is definitely something that can help you not having to manage that and focus on what matters and to see within your own workforce what's going on.
Yeah, so you need to establish the partnerships to understand the local markets and so on. Yeah. Yes.
No, I mean, compliance is a result of you going into different markets or being active in a market, right? It's something that comes with being an entrepreneur, building your business abroad, and then you obviously have to comply. And then, do you want to worry about local compliance? Do you want someone else to focus on that, right? If you have an opportunity tomorrow to enter the Peruvian market, you may not even have a legal entity there, right? So how would you solve those global employment issues, right? And I think that's the question a company should have when they expand and they have a certain strategy in place. Make sure you have that global expansion strategy in place.
To focus on the business, right?
To focus
rather
on the business.
than the administration.
And know how you're going to solve certain issues that will most definitely arise.
Yes. And when talking about different areas that could be a problem for the business, I mean, you have new reporting standards and frameworks now, such as CSRD and ESRS, and it will be a huge workload for different companies. Is there a way for international payroll solutions to contribute to improved reporting capabilities?
I think I found that that's a difficult question, right? So can we really contribute to that? We can make the data available. I think that's what we can do. Obviously, I think all of our companies are looking at sustainability and looking to make sure that our systems, make that better in some way. But honestly, if we can contribute not too much, I would say, apart from handling the data. I think that would be my answer to that.
Depends on if you want to have a payroll manager be responsible for it, but ultimately, if you look at those ESRSs with environmental issues, if you have company cars and they're all running on diesel and fuel, and you want to now change them to electric car park, right? This is going to be impactful on your organization because there's an investment that comes with it. There's current cars that you have running still. And what is the impact on the organization of changing or not changing and meeting those ESRs? Or reporting on them.
Else?
I think it's about the data, as you already said. It's about providing the data and giving the insights for those companies to do something with it and to make the right interpretation to take further strategic or tactical decisions or actions. And I think if you already take that step, which is not easy for every single international company, then I think you already add some great value.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Data payroll, it's the core, it's the backbone of everything. So getting the accurate data, it sounds simple, but it's very, very difficult. Different systems, different countries, different ways of gathering that data, and different suppliers, which is why, a global standard and outsourcing gives you that one standard, takes it away. In terms of new regulations, you've got stuff like pay transparency, which is, enacted. We've got 3 years. It was, I think, almost a year to the day that the European Parliament passed that. Certainly giving the data is the first step, but you need to help companies at a strategic level, because our, interaction with clients has shown that they really don't have a clear strategy of how they're going to get from where they are today. And think about it, within 3 years, every company with over 250 people is going to have to report on pay transparency every year, and even smaller companies are going to have that burden, less often, of course. But that's a lot of work, non-business related. It's not generating value for the company, but it's important nonetheless to, adhere to the standards.
Yeah. And of course, data security and information security will be of great importance, and we'll talk about that later, of course. Okay, thank you. So let's go to the next subject, HR platforms and service technology. For almost 2 decades, organizations have consolidated HR processes and systems globally, often with the purpose to simplify system landscape, align and improve processes on a global scale, and further enable system functionality. What would you say are the key benefits for organizations to consolidate typical HR processes and payroll solutions into one single HR service platform?
Well, I think, again, data, right? Having that data available at hand is the thing that will benefit the most, right? What the clients will benefit on the most. Having one process makes it easier, obviously, for your company rules to be there. But I think in the end, the main thing is data and making sure that people work in the same way, so you can also compare. Because that's something that we sometimes forget and we don't do. We look at performance, but sometimes if people do things differently, if you have one way of looking at it, it's obviously going to help you a lot more to see where the gaps might be, for example.
Yeah. Yes. Any reflections on the user experience?
Yeah, I think in the world of today, where basically you have less and less companies that are organized per country, but where teams are a little bit spread everywhere, I think if you have to do that with a tool that is also country-based, that's a nightmare. So I don't think we can, that isn't a solution, not today, but certainly not for tomorrow. That's in the user experience of everybody in the company, not just the employees first, but everybody who's touching basically the processes. So it's almost like a no-brainer, I would say, but not in reality and practice. You often see that it's not yet implemented.
Yeah, interesting.
Or wrongly implemented.
Or wrongly
right?
implemented, yeah.
Dennis?
User experience, to that point, I think it's hugely important. We see now that we have a different workforce that's attached to their screens all the time, and they're used to leveraging the best applications in the world. That's the ones they use. And if they come into the workforce and they have, substandard or suboptimal solutions, they will not tend to want to work for those companies. And we've seen that happen in fields with engineers, where they have the wrong set of tools, and they will leave a company like that, and they prefer other companies where they can add value but work with the tools that they love. Yeah. So it's actually becoming more and more important to keep those in the back of your mind when selecting a tool.
Yeah, that other user experience are getting better, and that will of course influence the user in the company as well.
Yeah, and there's always going to be difference between all of the vendors, right? There's no right or wrong, but ultimately it's something you have to take into consideration.
Yeah. And talking about new technology, AI, of course, to support and enable efficiency and improved processes. Do you see any benefits if you consolidate HR and payroll processes on a global scale into one platform with the support of new technology? Ian?
Yeah, this is the holy grail, where we've traditionally looked at people, process, technology, getting efficiency, getting the data flowing, but really the goal is to take out the people element of that, because that's where errors happen, that's where friction happens, complexity. And with the AI tools, there's a big focus, of course, on ChatGPT and generative AI, which certainly helps in talent. But in terms of payroll, we've been using machine learning, predictive analytics, all those sort of tools for some time. We're increasing that to try to increase the efficiency, if you want, and automate things, even things around compliance. It shouldn't be that you need to manually check. We're trying to strip all that out. So AI has got a huge impact. We're still at the early days, lots of tools, and we've spoken to clients and they're really grappling with this. They know that AI is important, but which direction they should go, where should they start? Should they start at the front end, at the back end? And clearly it's going to help a lot with the user experience. So I think that's sort of consumer grade interaction that the people expect. AI will really help with that in terms of speeding up the actual service and what people expect.
Yeah. And as you said, right now create some sort of awareness because it's still very early, right?
Very, very early, yeah.
Dennis?
Well, I think AI now is vendor driven. If I look at what DEEL does and how we support our clients and providing them AI tools already on the front end, I think they can do amazing things already, but we should also focus on the back end, right? Where the vendor implements the clients on a global scale, where we leverage AI in order to optimize those implementations, right? A global payroll implementation can be costly, and I think that an AI tool on the back end provided by the vendor will dramatically decrease those costs and simplify the implementation the implementation itself, but also greatly improve the lead times, because a global payroll implementation is not done overnight. It takes a lot of time and effort, a lot of human brain activity, but ultimately by leveraging AI, I think we can reduce those standards and help clients become more effective quickly.
Yeah.
I think it's not so we are testing at the moment generative AI based on the 1 million clients that we have, right? We're using that data to see if we can work with clients, and yes, it's very good to see, it's very impressive to see. I tend to see myself a little bit older. I'm impressed by what the things that it can do, right? But I had a conversation, and we were in Dubai at a conference talking about AI, and everyone was very scared. All the payroll people were really scared about it's going to replace our jobs. And we are saying, no, definitely not. I think we would all agree that it's not going to replace their jobs. It's going to make their jobs different, right? As global payroll makes their job different, but it's not going to replace it. In the end, you always need someone to check the results of the Gen AI, even though it's based on enormous amount of data and knowledge. Even with our 1 million clients, still someone needs to check it and make sure that it's correct.
Yes, and we are talking a lot about the data. I mean, and if to talk about the HR and Payroll platform, is there some way that platform could enable insights and data-driven decisions? We have sort of talked about it, but some other reflections to create a positive impact on the business strategy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's a huge, if you can mine the data that you have, well, firstly, as we said, you need to collate it. So it's in different places, different systems. You've got your core HR, you've got upstream, downstream HR systems. There's a lot of data, central data, local data. So the first bit is pulling that data together. Then in terms of interpreting and mining that data, as I said, using sort of machine learning algorithms, and there's a lot you can do for checking the actual data accuracy. But in terms of insights, there are lots of tools out there, BI tools, and all the HR systems include visualization tools to help. What I see as the real challenge is that when you have that insight, is how you execute on it, how you get that, as we talk about data-driven decisions, but how your population, is not overwhelmed by those insights and is able to execute. And I think that's the challenge, Olaf, that we see with our clients.
You've got always so much data, right?
Yeah,
Which do you pick, right?
Yeah.
So
I think it's also about deciding which areas you want to focus on. I think we spoke about payroll, but you have also workforce management, talent. I think there are a couple of areas where it's maybe easier to apply for a certain level of automation or even generative AI. So I think it's maybe not just seeing the data like a bunch of data and then decide to do something. Maybe you first need to decide, okay, which are the areas where I will focus on, and then from there. So I think you need to cut the beast into pieces.
And then
that's
get
what
the
I
data
think.
afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we have been talking a lot about the data, and we'll soon focus on the people as well. But actually, I have one more data question. So let's go to the third subject: implementation strategy. So, as you said, Denise, it requires careful consideration about legal aspects, data security integrations, employee benefits, and it's a huge workload for the organization. So, if we start with data security, is there some way or your advice to protect all the sensitive employee information that you have in a payroll solution? Dennis?
Yeah, it's the standard, right? So if you look at SaaS companies, they always certain standards, and whether you want your data in a private cloud or a public cloud, right? There's always certain steps that the right vendors take, and I think it's more of a security issue with security people, and that's something that all of these vendors at this table are able to cover. I think the most important or the most interesting discussion now is around AI, going back to data, because ultimately many companies don't want their employees accessing ChatGPT, for instance, because they might send sensitive data to the ChatGPT service, right? So that's something to dig into as a customer. When you look at vendors and all of their new capabilities, how are you actually processing my data that is running through an AI tool, right? What are you doing with it? And I think this is where the most interesting part of this discussion is.
But data security is a big topic. I think we would all agree. I think if I look at what clients ask, it's a lot about data security. How can I protect my data? Obviously, because the fines are so huge, and I've never seen them actually being applied a lot, but still, the fines are so huge, people are scared about it. And in fairness, they should be, right? Because if you see about the attacks, even in Sweden a couple of months ago, there was this attack, right? So it is there, it is real, and we need to think about it. And your provider needs to think about it, right? And I'm assuming all four of us have that high on our list, but if you work with any provider, make sure that they spend the amount of time and money on data security.
Yes.
And it's also about education on both sides. I think people are everywhere when it comes to HR, workforce management, payroll, name it. So if on the side of the company, but also on the side of the provider, if there's not enough education, somewhere, anytime it will go wrong. Because if you look at data subjects, it's often caused by somebody who has overlooked something or just made a wrong manipulation, opened a file that he or she shouldn't. So sometimes you can also bring it back to the basics, and I think education is super important.
But it's important to understand, but of course comes with great complexity.
Absolutely.
And then I think you talked about it, Els, about cultural differences before, and actually this question is about that. So what is your best advice for companies to address cultural differences when you roll out a payroll solution across several countries?
I think it starts before it's rolled out or it's about to take place. I think that's a super important thing to remind if you start a project. I think the more people from the different impacted regions or countries are involved, not too much, but also enough, the right balance, then for sure you have already an adaptation of the project. They embrace the project, more or less. And then I think towards the implementation journey as such, I think it's keeping that same level of communication. I think a lot of the success lays there. Not only internally within the company, but also between provider and the customer or the company. I think there as well, if you really bundle forces and really act as partners, true partners, it's easily said. In practice, it's maybe a little bit tougher to do it, but it's not an us and them. It's really, if you really collaborate, involve the right people from the different countries, different regions, clusters. I think that is, for me, based on what I have seen, definitely a success.
Recipe. So good communication along the way. Any other reflections?
Yeah, I think it's that readiness for change before you jump in. Very often we come into a project, there's necessary to move forward. You need to appreciate that, the business urgency where there are issues in a particular country. But preparing, as El said very clearly, with that planning phase is being the advisory partner, pushing companies to do the homework and make sure on their side, because it's often that readiness for assessment that identifies the issues, cultural differences. Certainly, if you're pushing a global standard, local countries will have their views, they'll have their preferences in terms of reporting. So finding that balance and having the awareness is on. And then I think it's engaged continuously throughout the process, way before you get to implementation, and getting that sort of continuous feedback to make sure that you're aware of those local issues and that you're able to tackle them in a it's not just about the technology here or new processes. It's making sure that you get that continuous people engagement going.
Yeah, because my third question is about how to guide organization of how to minimize disruptions and ensure a seamless transition, communication, planning, and local understanding. Is there anything else to add?
I might add a governance model, right? So as a customer, you would expect your vendor to advise you, to help you, and be mindful. Companies like ours do this every single day in, day out. We've been doing it for years, some of us even 75 years. So we know what we're doing, but for most companies, it's about a change that you do once every 5, 7 to 10 years maximum, right? So the impact on a customer is always much higher than on the vendor. So make sure you have a governance model in place that you can mirror towards your vendor. If there's a project lead or an integration manager or payroll leads, make sure that you mirror that, and it will optimize the speed. But culturally seen, never underestimate the experience of time from someone in Indonesia versus someone in Western Europe, right? Also be flexible and understand that issues might occur. It's a people's job at the end of the day, and I think you need to have a little bit of flexibility in an implementation plan as well.
It surprises me every time that people are spending a lot of money on implementing an HR or a payroll system, and then they make it implemented by people that do it next side to their day job, right, within the company. Well, I'm like, you're spending hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of euros, and you're asking someone to do that next to their day job. That's, to me, just blows my mind every time. It blows my mind, and I really can say that the change management that the both of you talked about, for sure, that's the number one reason that I see projects going wrong. But no change management from the client side. We can help as an organization, we can help them, but we can never do the change management. That always needs to be done by the company itself.
And I think often we get a response, and I'm sure everyone around the table will see, the company will say, we've got our change management program, but very often they don't have the depth of experience, they don't understand the complexity of payroll, time, the landscape issues that come with implementing this. So it's really important as a provider to get in there early and engage with them and validate that team's competence to actually deliver, because otherwise it tends to leads to delays, lag, which adds to those millions of costs through the program.
And share your experience from other customers as well, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very interesting. I would like to end today's session with a couple of true or false questions. You have the cards in front of you. Are we ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
Yeah? And I will start with a simple one. Yeah? To see if you can pick the right card. A global payroll solution can integrate with other HR systems, time tracking systems, and employee benefit administration platforms. True or false? You passed the first test. Thank you. Okay, this one is a little bit tricky, and I would like to hear your reflections. A global payroll solution is only of value for large multinational companies. Anyone would like to? Dennis?
Thank you. I think any organization that operates globally could have an interest in a global standardized solution, whether it's payroll or anything else, right? Ultimately, you want to benefit of a centralized, standardized approach, and I think payroll is by far one of the solutions that can help you drive your organization and help you focus on your own company rather than legislative compliance in all those countries. And you don't necessarily have to have 50,000 employees to be a global organization, right? If you have 200 employees in 3 countries, it's already going to be a very, very hard thing to overcome when it comes to local compliance.
Yeah, and you have the established partnerships, you have the experience and so on.
For sure.
I mean, and the third question relates on that. So a global payroll solution normally involves the use of one single payroll system for all countries where the company operates.
I'd say both.
Yeah, because this is interesting, because this is something that you often hear.
It is.
Yeah,
It is.
so it's not one single system for all countries.
No.
Dennis,
Well,
yeah.
it's a tricky one. It's
Yeah.
a tricky one. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
No, because ultimately, I think that it depends on the size of your organization, right? So some companies are so large and they cover a geography so large that it's very hard to migrate to a single platform, right? Obviously, I think from an organization that's able to centralize and standardize all those practices globally, it is a preferred method, but it's not something that all clients are capable of doing. Sometimes it's due to the nature of the structure of their organization. Sometimes it's political influence within a company.
But one
Short comment, Emile.
But it doesn't exist, one global payroll system. It doesn't exist, well, at least not that I know of. So that's why
This
I
is
think
very
it's false.
interesting. And so 3 false, 1 sort of semi. Okay, yeah, it's good for the audience. Okay, this is one interesting one as well. A global payroll solution is primarily designed to benefit the HR and payroll department rather than the business operations as well. Yeah, else?
Yeah, I would say, I would call this a no-brainer because in essence, all users, and that's employees, but also the people, the managers, they use it as often as the people in the payroll department. So, and I think, yeah, this is just false, false statement. Yeah.
Ian, comment.
I mean, we started all talking a lot about data, end-to-end payroll, and that sort of chain, if you want, of your landscape is just one system. Definitely agree with Els. You need to think about your different, stakeholders in terms of, end users, payroll specialists, managers in terms of the reports they want out there. Finance. So there's lots of stakeholders. So you need to be very mindful of that when you're starting and designing the actual system.
Yeah. And we talked about the talent management part as well, to access the different markets and so on.
Yes.
And that would, of sure, be beneficial for the business as well.
Yes.
Okay, last one. True or false? Are you ready?
We're ready.
Yeah?
Yep.
Global payroll solutions come with a secret panic button for payroll managers to press when they have, by mistake, paid all employees in yen instead of euros. True or false? False. No panic buttons in the HR.
Payroll managers are our panic buttons, if you will. Those are human panic buttons.
Yes. With that last question, we end today's roundtable on payroll across multiple countries. It has been a very interesting and rewarding afternoon with many valuable discussions and reflections. Thank you for coming to Stockholm. Els Hansens from SD Works, Ian Dunne from Alight, Emile Segers from ADP, and Dennis Versnel from DEEL.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, and thank you for joining us in the conversation. Hope to see you again, and until then, have a good one.